So, good afternoon. I'm thrilled to start today's special event with welcoming the Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the president of the African Development Bank Group. So my name is Takao Someya, the executive director and vice president of the University of Tokyo, and I will be the moderator of this session. So to begin, I'd like to invite the President Toru Fujii of the University of Tokyo to give the opening remarks.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Toru Fujii, President of the University of Tokyo. It is my great pleasure to welcome President Adesina to our campus and to this lecture hall. And so I really would like to thank for giving us a lecture and also dropping by us in this opportunity. And in fact, last April, April last year, he came to my office and we had a very meaningful discussion. And I'm delighted that this opportunity will be kind of realized, what has been realized, through this discussion. And then I asked him to have some opportunity to interact with our students here. And then we could also see our students, maybe also some of them are from African countries and also from Japan and from other areas of the world. And in fact, we are very much looking forward to your lecture. And I heard that this lecture also will be about the importance of a partnership between Africa and Japan, and as well as the significance of youth empowerment and entrepreneurship. And this entrepreneurship development is also in line with the discussion we had, and also with the goal of TCAT 9, I believe. TCAT 9 is, as you know, so next year there will be the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development. And so we at U Tokyo also committed to strengthening our collaboration with African countries and also contributing to this goal of TCAT 9. And in fact, this event is, I'm really glad to say that, certified as a TCAT 9 partner project by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we also have a guest from Ministry of Foreign Affairs here. Thank you so much for your attendance. And the modern world faces many complex and challenging global issues. And at U Tokyo, we aim to nurture students who are willing to tackle complex social challenges, create new value, and shape the future. And now we are planning to establish, for such kind of purposes, we are planning to establish a new college, which is called the College of Design. This is to be established as a new undergraduate educational initiative to cultivate individuals with a specialized expertise, as well as a broad knowledge and also high ethical standards, and the ability to confront these challenges, which requires multiple disciplines. And that should be with a design mindset. That is why we call it College of Design. And our university must become an environment where students with various backgrounds and characteristics can come together from throughout Japan and as well as around the world, and including African countries, to proactively engage with such challenges. And I'm sure that the idea of this College of Design shares a common vision with President Adesina too, and also his message given today. And that is fostering young people with a global perspective and an entrepreneurial mindset who can work alongside diverse people to address challenges and come up with solutions to them. Currently, at U Tokyo, there are 65 international students from African countries studying. And we hope that by learning together here, these students, so including you, along with your peers, their peers, will join forces to address societal challenges and become change makers. So today, after President Adesina's lecture, we will also hear from three other speakers. And Professor Somia will introduce them shortly, but they are all graduates of U Tokyo's undergraduate and graduate programs. So let us look forward to discussions with these distinguished and powerful alumni. So now I will conclude the remarks here, and I would like to invite President Adesina to deliver his lecture. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Professor Fujii. Now I'm honored to introduce the Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, so President of the African Development Bank. And Dr. Adesina is one of the most influential leaders in Africa's development, known his work in supporting young entrepreneurs, transforming agriculture, and promoting sustainable growth. Under his leadership, the African Development Bank has launched many important projects that are helping to build infrastructure, create jobs, and empower young people across the continent. He has received global recognition, including the prestigious World Food Prize, for his efforts to improve lives and foster economic growth. His lecture today is entitled Harnessing the Power of African and Japanese Youth. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Adesina.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Sumeya. First, Mr. President, Dr. Teruo Fujii, President of the University of Tokyo, Madam Executive Senior Vice President, other senior members and faculty members that are here, deans of faculties, and senior officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and those from the Ministry of Finance that are here, invited guests, and of course, let me start by saying I'm delighted to see all the students that are here. Thank you for inviting me here. Those students that are from Japan, of course, I see a lot of African faces here, and I'm delighted to be here to see all of you. So good afternoon, and let me try my Japanese and hope it's work. Konnichiwa. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm delighted to be here today to speak to you at this very prestigious University of Tokyo. I was last year when I met with the president and some of the faculty members. I would like to express to you my gratitude, Mr. President, for Dr. Teruo Fujii for inviting me back, and of course this time to also give a lecture right here at this university. And what an incredible university you are. I understand that this university was established in 1887 and is Japan's premier university and one of the topmost universities around the world. Now, you have a lot of things to be celebrated about. You have lots of alumni that are well known, of course, to me and many others. You have 18 Nobel Prize laureates and 5 astronauts. And if I stay around here, I might be able to go to the moon sometime. Who knows? You have produced 17 out of 64 prime ministers of Japan. Your graduates hold a quarter of the seats in the national parliament, the Diet. Oh, my goodness. And 11 out of the 15 justices of the Supreme Court of Japan graduated from here. And of course, I was today with the Vice Minister of Finance, Mr. Fuji-san, and the Rector, Soda-san, and Japanese Executive Director, Mr. Nobodo-san, all of them who actually finished from here. It's amazing how great this university is. So I say, wow, it looks like to get far in life, you have to come to University of Tokyo. And so maybe I will get a university degree also from Tokyo. I wish to thank the faculty members, as I said, students, for inviting me for this event. I'm pleased that we are having this conversation. There are other faculty members that might be here from universities across Japan, including APU, Kyushu University, Sophia University, and Kyoto University. Today, I will speak to you about you, the youth. in a lecture that I've titled Harnessing the Power of African and Japanese Youth. Today before me is a melting pot, the future of Africa and the future of Japan. Indeed, the future we are in today is what we saw in the past. And so let us together today build a new future for the youth and you that will become the future leaders of tomorrow. A tomorrow that for Africa and Japan will be a future of shared prosperity. The efforts being made by Japan to train African students in universities across Japan are the right investments. An investment in building and nurturing lifelong relationships, strategic alliances for the future, covering all spheres, from diplomacy to science, technologies, corporate business, trade, and investments. To reap, of course, you have to sow. And that is why I applaud the government of Japan for sowing into the future of the youth in Africa. The Japan Africa Dream Scholarship, called the DREAM, funded by the government of Japan, fully supports master's and PhD students from Africa to train right here in Japan. Right here at the University of Tokyo, you have supported over time over 200 students are here, and many more in other parts of the country in other Japanese universities in areas such as science, technology, engineering, mathematics, environmental sciences, and public policy. I was just told in the office of the president that you have today here 65 students from 20 countries. If you are from Africa and you're here and you can see me, can I see your hand up? I just want to make sure. All right, good. It's great to see everybody. The African Business Education for Youth, called the ABE Initiative, that was launched in 2013, has supported over 1,400 African students in education, contributing to building future business leaders for Africa. The program has enhanced university-industry collaboration, including internships in major Japanese companies, as well as Japanese universities and African universities. This, without any doubt, is going to help to strengthen business and economic ties between Japan and Africa. The African Initiative of the University of Tokyo fosters collaborative efforts with African universities and research institutes, especially on research on sustainable development, health, and environmental services. Your Youth Global Science course attracts international students to the University of Tokyo for science programs, life sciences, and environmental sciences. I would therefore like to commend the government of Japan through the Ministry of Finance and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for all they have done to make this possible through the Policy and Human Resource Development Grant that's managed by the African Development Bank. And I should say that particular grant, Mr. President, is 30 years old today. So you can clap for Japan, you can clap for Africa. I think we're excited about that particular program. Thank you. Congratulations to Japan and congratulations also to Africa. I'd like to start my talk by situating why it is very strategically important for Japan to continue to expand its engagement and investment in Africa. That is because before we can speak about how to harness the power of African and Japanese youth, we must understand the strategic importance of Africa. Africa has 65% of the uncultivated arable land left to feed the world. And so what Africa does with agriculture is going to fully determine the future of food and how you feed 10 billion people in the world by 2050. We must also recognize that the size of the food and agriculture business in Africa is going to reach a whopping $1 trillion by 2030. You can't ignore that. Africa will be critical for global green energy transition. That's because it holds large deposits of critical metals and minerals that will drive energy revolution in the world, including 92% of platinum, 56% of cobalt, and 54% of manganese, as well as vast deposits of lithium and copper, among others. Now, the size of the electric vehicle and battery energy storage systems will rise from an estimated $7.5 trillion to $57 trillion by 2050. Just imagine the transition that will be. A growth that will depend, again, a lot on Africa. It is therefore very clear Africa is the growth frontier that will spur global growth. Japan should therefore pay more attention to Africa. This should be further accelerated through the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD 9, that will hold here in August of 2025. The youth are critical for the economic growth of Japan and Africa. For Africa, Japan, and the world to reap the dividends of this demographic asset, we must make significant investments and conscious investments in education and skill for the youth. Japan has, of course, a demographic disadvantage. However, as its youth population of 11 million represents just 8.8% of the population, much lower than the 16% of the global share of youth globally in the population. In Africa, the story is starkly different. With the continent accounting for the world's largest growing youth population, with the working age population expected to grow by 450 million people, or close to 70% by 2025. In fact, by 2050, 1 in 4 people in the world will be African. The New York Times in last October got it right when it said, the world is becoming more African. Harnessing this is going to be very crucial. But as I look at Japan, I must say, is investing very heavily in educating its youth. Over 98.5% of Japanese youth are well-trained and have completed high school, one of the highest rates in the entire world. Japan's talent dividend is very strong, given that 60% of its youth are pursuing higher education. Africa's story on this is not as strong as that of Japan, because 43% of the youth have completed secondary education, and only 10% of the youth are enrolled in higher education. Both Japan and Africa are making, however, good progress in harnessing the potential of their youth in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. While 30% of Japanese youth in universities pursue science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, less than 25% of students in sub-Saharan Africa actually pursue these fields. Now, this, of course, puts Africa behind in terms of preparedness for the fourth industrial revolution, especially in fields such as artificial intelligence, robotics, automation, cloud computing, which, of course, are all revolutionizing the world. To change this, the African Development Bank is working with the African Union to establish a $300 million African Education, Science, and Technology Innovation Fund. The bank has also established several universities of science and technology to address this gap. We call them the Mandela Institutes, and there are several of them across Africa. A challenge facing many youths, probably a lot more in Africa than perhaps right here in Japan, is the mismatch between the education that they receive and the skills that are needed in the labor market. One way to fix this problem and to deepen the skills of the youth in Japan and in Africa and to get them better prepared for a rapidly changing world of digital economy is through upskilling in digital skills. And that is why the African Development Bank's program on skills for employability, we call SEPA or SEPA, action plan we have from 2022 to 2025 is very important. We are implementing this to bridge the skills gap and to address the skills mismatches and also quality and relevance of those skills. As of March 2024, this year, the African Development Bank's Board of Directors have approved close to $682 million for projects to upgrade skills of youths across Africa. The bank also plans to provide an additional $809 million by next year to support projects for skills and employability of youth in Africa. Now, the upgrading of skills is being fast-tracked by the youth themselves. Their access to smartphones. In Japan, for example, 98% of the youth have access to smartphones. And you can see its effect in Japan, which is rapidly expanding esports, where it has global leadership, with Tokyo now being one of the global hubs of digital entertainment. In Africa, students are helping to rapidly upskill themselves in digital education through widespread use of smartphones for online micro-credentialing in different fields with platforms such as the Coursera. For example, the Coursera platform estimates that 2/3 of learners from Africa access their education for skills upgrade using smartphones and tablets, which it says is the highest level anywhere in the world. The African Development Bank is also supporting what we call Coding for Employment program, because coding is the new currency in the world today. And we're establishing 130 centers of excellence across Africa in partnership with Microsoft philanthropies to provide digital skills for hundreds of thousands of youths and women all across the continent. A big challenge, of course, that we see in Africa in particular is lack of employment for the youth. While 15 million youth enter the labor market every year, there are only 3 million jobs. And that leaves an annual gap of 12 million jobs per year that have to be provided. With increasingly limited opportunities in the public sector, and of course the fiscal space that continue to shrink, the focus now has to shift from the youth becoming job seekers to the youth becoming job creators. The key, of course, to solving unemployment is entrepreneurship. Africa is today experiencing an entrepreneurship boom, with 22% of its working age population starting a business. And that's the highest rate in the world, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor for 2020. The leading areas of focus for entrepreneurship are in the areas of agriculture, retail, services, and technology. In Japan, the youth are much luckier. You are much luckier here in terms of unemployment. It's probably about 4% in 2023. But the government is doing quite a lot here to support the youth in many ways. Through such initiatives as the J Startup Initiative, it provides financing for tech-driven startups and young entrepreneurs in fintech, artificial intelligence, and clean energy. The government also supports various school-to-work programs, internships, and apprenticeships, and vocational training, as well as several other public sector interventions. Now, the youth entrepreneurs in Japan are supported as well by venture capital funds, and some of the venture capital funds are actually here with us this evening. For example, the Japanese Venture Capital Association reported that 2.5 billion, which is Japanese yen 50 billion, was directed to financing youth-led companies in 2021. Now, just as in Japan, the future is also very bright for young entrepreneurs in Africa. This is being driven by the rapid expansion of the digital economy. The digital economy in Africa will add $180 billion to the GDP by 2025 and $712 billion by 2050. The African startup ecosystem is taking advantage of this digital economy with a rapid growth with more than 600 active startups hubs all across the continent. Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Egypt have become centers of tech innovations driven by youth entrepreneurs in health tech, agri-tech, and e-commerce. This rapid growth is being spurred by also venture capital funds. For example, according to Disrupt Africa, African tech startups raised over $5 billion in 2022. And that is double what they raised in 2020. The African fintech industry has become especially attractive to investors. With over 57% of Africa's population still unbanked, fintech startups are rapidly innovating to provide financial services to the underserved segment of a rapidly growing population. The fintech industry in Africa was valued at $13 billion in 2023. Its size is projected to rise to between $20 and $23 billion by 2028, to $150 billion by 2040, and to $200 billion by 2050. This growth is being driven by significant growth in internet penetration, with rapid spread of mobile phones, especially smartphones, which are expected to have 65% or 67% penetration by 2025. This increased connectivity provides fertile ground for tech startups in areas such as e-commerce, fintech, and digital services. These areas, I will argue, present excellent opportunities for Japanese investors. Yesterday, we had some discussion, and today I was at the Ministry of Finance, and I learned that even Japan is going to change, or planning to change, the JBIC law that actually established JBIC, but also the one for JICA, to provide a lot more resources to be able to support venture capital funds, private equity funds, all across Africa and also here. And that's also very, very important. And so as you do, let me say that Japanese venture capital funds seeking high growth investments should therefore look towards Africa to capitalize on Africa's rapid digital transformation. This will offer, in my view, to Japan an early mover advantage in these high growth sectors. Young Japanese investors, they are seeing these opportunities through new lenses, and they are making bold bets on Africa. Take, for example, Keppel Africa Ventures, started in 2018, which has institutional investors such as SBI Holdings, Toyota Shosho Corporation, and Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Bank. It has over 100 investments across Africa, making it one of the most active venture capital funds of Japan in Africa, with a portfolio of about $60 million. Another example is the Toyota Shosho Venture Fund, part of the Toyota Group, a venture capital fund of $50 to $75 million, investing in African mobility, transport, energy, and smart cities. Yet another example is Samurai Africa Fund, which is investing $20 million in companies all across Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. And I don't know if my friend Ken is here, Shibusawa, but I was with him today. The And Capital, set up by Ken Shibusawa, a $100 million impact investment fund that he launched together with the Kazai Jozukai, and of course the African Development Bank plans to put in $10 million into that fund. And there's something the Japanese young entrepreneurs are seeing in Africa, which I think it's particularly exciting. And that's because they are not seeing Africa as that risky. And I think if you know your neighborhood, you don't have to worry about your neighborhood. Maybe if you don't know your neighborhood, you'll be worried about your neighborhood. And I learned how to swim as president of the African Development Bank only 5 years ago. And when I learned how to swim, it was because a staff of mine told me, Mr. President, it's a key person risk if you go on a boat ride and the boat capsizes, that's a key person risk for the bank. And so I learned how to swim. But while I was learning how to swim, my coach was standing at the end of the pool. And he said, well, why don't you go across the pool after 3 days of teaching me? I said, you must be out of your mind. I can't do that. He said, no, but you can do it. And I started moving. And when I was moving, I got almost towards the deep end. Of course, I had a fright. And I looked behind me, and the coach wasn't there. He was on the other side of the pool and just talking to the water to me. And of course, I started panicking, and I started thinking, I said, well, boy, you are the other end anyway. And what is that I'm trying to say? Is that when you know how to swim, actually, you find out that the best end to swim is the deep end of the pool. And so sometimes you have these fears and anxieties about things just because you haven't done it, just because you have perceptions of it, but it's not as bad as you think, and I have data to support that. I can tell you, without any doubt, that this new generation of Japanese young people are breaking barriers of risk averseness that actually have paralyzed many corporations here in Japan about Africa. They are seeing Africa as a brimming continent of opportunities, and they are absolutely right. Let's think of the following. Now, Moody's Analytics, don't just believe what I'm saying, but believe the data. Now, Moody's Analytics did an assessment of infrastructure default rates globally, a cumulative analysis for 14 years in different parts of the world. And what did they find? They found that the cumulative default rate in Africa was 1.9%. The cumulative default rate in North America was 6.6%. The cumulative default rate in Latin America was 10%. The cumulative default rate in Eastern Europe was 12.2%. And the cumulative default rate in Western Asia, 4.3%. You figure. Africa is the least risky. But yet, you find a lot of people talk about Africa as if Africa is very risky. Africa has the lowest risk of default. So, my message is this. To harness the potential of Japanese and African youth, Japanese businesses should not be risk-averse about Africa. They should expand their investments into Africa significantly. They should vote in terms of capital allocation to Africa. And they should invest more significantly all across Africa. To further boost the businesses of young Africans in Africa and provide these kind of linkages that we're looking for, the African Development Bank is also supporting several other initiatives. One of those initiatives is called Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks. For those of you that are Africans that are here, and if you come to a bank in Africa, you probably see somebody with me with a bow tie or some other kind of tie. And you're a young person, you walk into the bank, and the first thing they see is they don't see ideas, they don't see creativity, they don't see entrepreneurship, they see risk. Oh, well, how old are you? I am 25 years old. Well, go bring your tax receipt for the last 40 years. That's how it works. The financial systems are not developed for young people because they see young people as risk. And that's what we are changing at the African Development Bank. Because I really believe the greatest risk that Africa faces is not its young people. The greatest risk it faces is not putting its capital behind the young people. It's not good enough to say, I have good ideas or have good entrepreneurship things. I need capital. And that's why the African Development Bank is supporting the establishment of what we call youth entrepreneurship investment banks all across Africa. These are new financial institutions that will support the businesses of young people with technical assistance, business incubation services, accelerator programs, equity investments, quasi-equity investment, debt instruments in the life cycle of their businesses, almost from this end of the quadrant to that end of the quadrant, to make sure that we can build youth-based wealth out of Africa. We have another program that's called AFAWA. Can I see how many of the students here are women? Can I just see show of hand? Yeah, okay, all right. We need, I've never seen a bird with only one wing, so we got to make sure all the birds have two wings, of course. We have a program called Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa. This program is mobilizing $5 billion for businesses of young women all across Africa. And I'm delighted to say, already as of last month, we had approved $1.8 billion for over 18,300 businesses of women all across Africa. Because I think when Africa gets supporting for women right, it will get everything right. Because I really believe women make Africa work, and they deserve a significant amount of support. Let me also say that we have another program in agriculture. Now, those of you who know me, you know I was in 2011 to 2015 the Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria. And I'm an economist, but I work in agriculture. And I remember at that time I used to wear my bow tie just like this, and everybody used to think I was the Minister of Finance, because they are not used to seeing somebody with a bow tie as Minister of Agriculture. And I said, well, you know, look, I will make you all billionaires and millionaires in agriculture, because agriculture is the coolest business that you can think about. And to get the young people into agriculture, I tried at that time to make it cool, make it sexy, make it all I can. I got a lot of young people excited into agriculture. So today at the African Development Bank, we have a program that's called Enable Youth in Agriculture, which we are putting $490 million into supporting young people in various areas of value chains in agriculture. And this is supporting already over 44,000 young people, businesses in Africa, and creating over 63,000 jobs. Now, as I come to a close of my talk, let me say that our goal is very clear. We want to upskill 25 million people, young people in Africa, with skills. And we also want to create 25 million jobs for our youth. We do all this for one goal: to unleash the youth potential of Africa's youth. We do them to create platforms for Africa's youth to be competitive. We do them to allow Africa's youth to connect with the world. We do them to create youth-based wealth in Africa. The future of Japan and Africa depends on the youths of Africa and Japan. Let us continue to invest in the youth in Africa and in Japan. Let us continue to support universities such as University of Tokyo and several other universities in Japan and in Africa to build and to nurture the scientific leaders of tomorrow. Together, let us build a more prosperous partnership between Japan and Africa by harnessing and unlocking the full potential of our youths. For in the youth of Africa and the youth of Japan lies our glorious future. Together, let's make it happen. Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu.
So thank you very much, President Adesina, for the insightful and inspiring lecture. Particularly, I was deeply touched by your passion to empower the young people. So now I'd like to invite the comment from the panelists. First, the Nagai-san, I'd like to begin with the discussion to the, regarding the young entrepreneur. The young entrepreneur as the central heart of the African innovation. What are some of the unique challenges young entrepreneurs face in Africa today? So could you comment on that?
Thank you very much. It's a very difficult question that I need to answer as the first step. The question is, what's the challenges, unique challenges of African entrepreneurs? I think one of the things is about the I would say the funding and then startup environment. As compared to what we see in Japan, we have less opportunities where they can raise funds and support opportunities from the senior people. That's one of the things. The other thing I have been observing is more about the knowledge and know-how on how to make a great company, meaning one is about the business plan, but more is about how to establish the organization. We are somehow lucky because since we are in Japan, we know quite a few number of greatest companies and how they established the organization. And then possibly in Africa, we have kind of very limited knowledge on how we can make successful organization in Africa. That's another thing.
Okay, so thank you very much. And also, I want to ask one question to the Professor Hayashi. So you are currently Executive Vice President for the Globalization and Diversity, and I know you visited the Africa quite recently. Could you explain how important the connection to the Africa to the University of Tokyo?
Yes, thank you very much. I visited Africa just last July, the motivation why I visited there is that I would like to diversify our university community. I would like to have more students from Africa, and also I hope that our students go to Africa so that they can learn each other. And what struck me from the President Dr. Adesina's talk today is that he talked about risk aversion, the culture that we really have been sticking to, and we associate Africa with risks. But on the other hand, I saw when I visited there in Africa, I saw a big potential, and also I saw the diverse cultures that I see in front of me, and I believe that diversity itself is to diversify the risks. I think that if you invest something, not only in United States or in Europe or even in Japan, and you also diversify your investment, that is one way to avoid risks. And it's the same with the education. I think with including more perspectives and try to understand the other cultures means that we can navigate and resonate the world. And that is the skills that we really need here at the University of Tokyo, since our community at the University of Tokyo has been homogenized quite much. More than 50% of the students come from Tokyo. And of course, 80% are male, and at the undergraduate level, 98% are Japanese citizens. So I and President Fuji, and of course, would like to diversify our university community to be able to resonate the world global challenges. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for your insights. And next, Mr. Nomoto, I'd like to address the role of international collaboration. So in your experience, how can international investor and organization can better support African startup and young entrepreneurs? And what are some strategy or partnerships that have proven successfully in your view?
Thank you very much for the floor. So, I think first of all, I want to mention that actually related with what Nagai-san mentioned. So, since there's a lot of challenges in Africa, actually the role of startups in Africa for development is very crucial. So, if there's a kind of issues around the society, probably some Japanese people go to the government to solve the issue, but actually African people, they solve it by themselves. Yeah. Partially because that they cannot rely so much on the institution, but they have those kind of very good ownership about the society's issue. So this is why African people are very active and very own the problem of the society. So this is very good environment for the entrepreneurs, and then so what we can do is actually we are also as a international organization, we really organize those kind of power into the, how can I say, connected to the global companies or investors, and then we just, how can I say, have a kind of very good venue to, how can I say, operate more collaborating with not only government, also big companies. So last year, actually we invited more than 10 startup companies to African Investment Forum, which is a flagship event which is initiated by President Adesina, which is a kind of business matching event. So at that time, actually they mentioned that first of all, that opportunity was, so they, like him, there's many Japanese entrepreneurs in Africa. They know each other as a kind of by name, yeah. But they don't gather often at the same place. So first of all, this was a very good them to really share the challenges in Africa. And also it was a good opportunity for them to connect it not only to the Japanese investors, but also African investors. So we can do a lot of things. And also as an international organizer, kind of a conductor or like a matchmaker within this area.
Okay, so thank you very much for your insight. And I appreciate all of the panelists for your invaluable comments and insights based on your own experiences. So I'm sure that the comments shared by the panelists have been valuable for the student in the audience today. So please join me in thanking all the panelists today. So next, I'd like to ask Mr. Takahiro Tsuda, Director, International Bureau, Ministry of Finance, to give the concluding remarks.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much, Professor Somea, for kind introduction. On behalf of the Japanese government, or Japanese Ministry of Finance in particular, I thank President Adesina for a very inspiring lecture, and also the distinguished panel for intellectually stimulating discussion followed by interactive engagement with the audience. The theme of today's lecture, Harnessing the Power of Africa and the Japanese Youth, comes at a critical juncture. Japan can be described as a country with cutting-edge technologies, innovation, security, but also with huge challenges ahead, such as population aging, low birth rate, and also inertia in homogeneity, as Professor Hayashi emphasized. Therefore, it is natural that talented, vibrant, aspiring youngsters should turn their eyes to Africa, because Africa is rich in natural resources, agricultural fields, and also fastest growing working age population. Although its development challenges are still present and the risk perception remains elevated, Africa's recent progress in growth and improved social stability has transformed the continent to a land of business opportunities. To the students participating today, I encourage each one of you to start thinking what you could do to attain the fullest potential in Africa. One of the Ministry of Finance's key missions, because I'm from the Ministry of Finance, just a little bit advertisement time, is to foster international financial cooperation and development, of course, by contributing to multilateral development banks like World Bank, Asian Development Banks, and you name it, including not least the African Development Bank. Looking at the reforms being taken by all MDB's multilateral development banks, called MDB Evolution, under the leadership of Dr. Adesina, African Development Bank stands out in its innovative experimental approach, including financial instruments, which I believe are more than needed to address not only poverty and inequality, but also emerging tasks to deliver global and regional public goods, like climate change, like pandemic response, electricity, water supply, and so on and so forth. I firmly believe that the African Development Bank is the best organization or local guide to play a bridging role between the reality on the ground in the continent, on one hand, and Japan's knowledge and expertise on the other. As a major non-regional shareholder, we'd like to push this move even further. I believe this lecture will be followed by reception, the Africa evening. My last piece of advice is do not underestimate the importance of human networking. Although we have discovered the usefulness of virtual communication after the COVID pandemic, nothing can be compared to the power of in-person interactions. When you meet new persons, you can learn from each other, you can ask questions, you can connect the dots. Above all, you can promote respect and trust between Japan and the African continent. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Mr. Tsuda, for the closing remarks, and we truly appreciate your thoughtful words.